been 1 year since the lockdown in Minnesota began, where I live and many of my guests reside as well. It's been a hard year, to say the least, and sometimes it feels like we've been through the ringer, and how can we possibly decide to choose joy every single day? And what is this type of toxic positivity culture where everybody has to smile all the time? Well, the truth is, life isn't always about smiling, but sometimes a smile can really make a day better. And sometimes that smile from someone else and that connection with someone else makes us feel better. Our guest today on the Thrive Forward podcast is Jasmine Stringer. She is a connector, and connector extraordinaire is what I would say. I absolutely adore Jasmine, and I think you will too after today's episode. She truly is a definition of building community. She has done that through her book, Seize Your Life, How to Carpe Diem Every Day, through her actions and vision boarding and creativity that she inspires others to lead with and love with, and especially something that really launched in 2020 after the murder of George Floyd. Jasmine created community, bringing together and amplifying voices of Black and Brown sisters in the state of Minnesota with white allies as well. I was honored to be a part of this experience, and I will continue to move forward just like Jasmine does. We have chosen to live our life in authenticity and moving forward. So if you're struggling in this space and you want some inspiration on how to choose joy in a time that feels really heavy, how to seize your day or even your life, then tune in to today's episode with Jasmine Stringer. And always, if you find value in anything that you listen to today, please share with someone you know could find value in it as well. Jasmine, thank you so much for joining the Thrive Forward podcast. You and I can talk for hours, and so we'll try to hammer everything down into a period of time. But thank you so much for joining us today.
Shannon, thank you so much for inviting me to be a guest on the Thrive Forward podcast, and thank you so much for your support of Share the Mic Minnesota, and thank you for the way that you are showing up in the world as an ally. I really talk about this continuum of the first part of the campaign. It's all about awareness, and then moving people to action and advocacy. And my friend, you are there. You are modeling what action looks like and what advocacy looks like each and every single day. And I want to say, I see you, and I thank you for that.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate those words. And as you know, it is something that I am forever dedicated to every day of my life. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. We're going to talk about Share the Mic MN. We're going to talk about Carpe Diem. We're going to talk about this lovely book of yours, Seize Your Life, How to Carpe Diem Every Day. If you all listening have not grabbed Jasmine's book, I actually have 2 copies because Jasmine sent me an extra one. So I would be happy to give one away to anybody that is listening. We'll figure out something fun to do in that perspective. But Jasmine, tell everybody kind of how you've got to the space that you're in right now and why you've started all of these amazing missions, inspiring people to seize the day.
Yeah, so at my core, I would say that I am a connector. And it's so fitting that we are doing this interview at this time. I know it's going to air for International Women's Month, but Carpe Diem has been my mantra since I was in high school. And for those not familiar with the phrase Carpe Diem, it's Latin for seize the day. And before Issa Rae coined the phrase, I think I was an awkward Black girl, and I was quirky, and I wasn't popular, I wasn't lame. It was just like, oh, there's Jasmine, always marching to her own beat, doing her own thing. And so when I heard the phrase Carpe Diem, I was like, ooh, different. Seize the day. That resonates with me. And then my junior year of high school, or maybe, yeah, my junior year, I should know this. My junior year of high school, um, a guy died and he played basketball and he was like star athlete and I was friendly with his sister and it was like he died all of a sudden. Like he was at school, he was playing basketball, and then next thing you know, he's gone. And I think that was the first time in my life that I had witnessed or experienced a death. Like, how can this person be here today and then they're gone tomorrow? And so I
Mm-hmm.
realized in that with his passing that life changes in the blink of an eye. And life changes in the blink of an eye for the good, and so
Mm-hmm.
we can't forget that like a lot can happen. Great stuff can happen in a blink of an eye. And unfortunately, life can change in the blink of an eye, um, negatively, and fill us with grief and fill us with sorrow and fill us with burden and anxiety. And I think we know that
Mm-hmm.
after the rolling 12 months that we are in of the pandemic, the, you know, the interlocking crisis that we are in with the COVID pandemic, the new awakening to racial inequities and social justice issues, and then the mental health pandemic that no one is really talking about, but
Mm-hmm.
it's here and it's huge. So recognizing this, that life does change, how do we show up? How do we seize each and every day? And before the pandemic, I think people thought that they had to do these grandiose things, especially with social media, like do it for the gram. Like we need to go skydiving and have this great dinner and take this wonderful vacation to seize the day. But really, how are we showing up in our everyday lives? That's why the title of my book is Seize Your Life, How to Carpe Diem Every Day. How are we showing up in our everyday lives? And how are we living mindfully, like connecting in the everyday moment? How are we connecting with one another? And not just like, oh, me and my family are great, so that's good. But recognizing of another thing, that's one thing we learned too, is that we are all interconnected because this little germ, COVID, that we can't even see is like connected us all. So how are
Mm-hmm.
we living, recognizing that we are um, connected to one another? And then how are we showing up authentically, like who we really are,
Yeah.
and not who we think we should be?
And I think that that word authenticity gets thrown around a lot lately. How would you define authenticity? How do people really show up in who they are?
you know, I try to live my life as authentic as possible, but I say this, like I live my life authentic, but I'm a person that, before pandemic, like I wore hair extensions, I wear makeup. And so that's not taking away, but that's authentically who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Like my personal appearance matters. So I think sometimes people think like you have to just be stripped down to the core, but it's really being true to yourself. When I think about authenticity, it's like, who am I at the core, and how and what matters to me, and how do I, Jasmine, want to show up in the world? Not how and my parents told me I should show up, how my husband thinks I should show up, what I think I need to show up to get ahead of in the world, what I think I need to do because this is what the Joneses are doing, all of these things that I think I should be doing or people have told me I should be doing. How do I want to show up? And that's authenticity to me.
Yeah, I often think of it as how do you come home to you, right?
Mhm.
Where is that home inside of you and where do you feel the most comfortable? Um, for me, I discovered this a lot through my career. I was wearing suits and things of that sort working in the financial industry, and I felt so trapped because that's not who I was. I was raised by artists. And so I was very funky. I loved big, chunky jewelry, bright lipstick, bright colors, high top shoes, not high heels. And I slowly started to, as I began to uncover who I was, I started to show up more authentically. And people be like, how do you get away with wearing that to work when everybody else isn't wearing it? And I was like, well, this is just who I am. And like, I show up the best for my clients when I'm like this. I show up the best as an employee. And then I launched Forethought, and I was like, wow, I can really step into my own. And then sweatpants became cool in 2020. No, I don't call them sweatpants. I wear comfy pants. Athleisure is totally on brand for me.
Athleisure. Well, I will tell you, see, like I'm in my bling today because I like to sparkle it up, and I have actually been trying to get dressed every
Oh, yeah.
day. Um, today I do have on a jumpsuit, but it's
It's cute
fashionable.
though.
It's cute
Yeah.
and it's blinged out, but that's me. Like I like to get dressed and I like to wear my clothes and put on my makeup. So at first I was doing the athleisure because I'm home and I'm not going anywhere. So what's the point of getting dressed? But I'm like, you know what? I actually feel better when I get dressed and I have this closet full of these great clothes. So I'm gonna wear them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I would, I still get dressed. I love jean jackets. I love like enamel pins. I love doing something funky and different with athleisure. So you like make it look like it's not, and you dress it up or you do different things. And I've learned to express myself in that way. So authenticity is almost like, how do you express yourself so that you are truly who you are, right?
Hmm.
Is kind of how I look at it. So tell us, you came to that space within high school, but then of course you went into your professional career. So how did you
Right.
carry that theme with you throughout your professional life?
Well, I will say that I always carried the philosophy of Carpe Diem with me through my professional life, but there was a time in my professional life where I lost the lesson of authenticity. I mean, I talk about it in my book where I received the feedback that, you smile too much and da da da. Leaders are tough. You're not going to be perceived as a leader because you're perceived as being too happy. Well, clearly, that's not the organization for me. If you can't smile and be happy and still be taken as a leader, then I don't need to work here, or maybe I don't need to be a part of your team. But I allowed that feedback to affect me, and then I'm stumping around and trying to be someone that's not me, and I'm killing myself on the inside. And you don't even realize it. We hear this expression a lot, like dim your light.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I don't think I realized how much I was dimming my light and trying to fit into this mold, as opposed to finding an organization that would um, allow me to be me and show up authentically who I am and still perform and still knock it out the park. And, if I were to give anybody any advice today, especially people working in the work environment, I am very pro working for other people. I know people love to be entrepreneurs, but I always say it's a different
Mm-hmm.
experience. And there's nothing like cutting your teeth or getting experience in a professional working environment and learning,
Absolutely.
and making mistakes and climbing the ladder, not climbing the ladder. There's nothing wrong with that. But find a manager, find a mentor where you can be who you are.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when you're young, we're evolving. Like, we think we want to do this, we think we want to do that. So you need to have a safe space where you can experiment and evolve.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if I would have gone and been an entrepreneur, I think I've always had an entrepreneurial type of spirit. But if I would have just done that out of college, I would have probably fallen on my face because I didn't have that basis of knowledge and support that I've had. And I've had amazing mentors throughout my life and my professional career that have helped me with that. You and I were talking a little bit about one key space where you had to seize the day within your professional career. Can you share a little bit of that story? Because I think that hits home for a lot of people, especially after 2020, with job changes and things like that that have happened in their lives.
Yeah. So, I we were talking about, the theme for this year's Women's International History Month is Choose the Challenge. And how do you choose the challenge? And really, what does it mean to challenge? And so I was sharing with you when I was laid off from my corporate job, and it was really like, okay, what do I do next? And most people were like, girl, get another job, bank that severance. And I decided to go a different way. I was like, well, I know I want to do something different. What that something different uh, is, I don't quite have figured out in my head. But what if I use this gift of a payment in a severance and took some paid time off to think? And that was a blessing in itself. And so I call it a rear view mirror moment, that sometimes we are so in the minute of every single day. I mean, especially now
Mm-hmm.
in COVID, maybe we were introspective in the beginning, but now, I mean, it's like we got kids at home, we're homeschooling them, social learning, whatever it is, cooking food, doing our jobs, that when can I breathe? And so, with that gift of paid time off, I was like, okay, this is what I think I want to do. This is what I'm good at. I'm just going to try this. And if I fail, hopefully I have enough skills. Hopefully I can leverage my professional network to then re-enter that path if I need to go back there.
Yeah, I think we don't take often the time to actually pause, even when it's like literally handed to us on a platter. Like, here you go, here's your time off. It's not always the greatest experience when we have a transition in our lives, whether it's a job change, a loss, a relationship change, whatever it might be. But how are we pausing to think through that process? I get the professional honor of being able to walk through those spaces with a lot of clients. And often they look at me and they're like, well, what do we do with the money? And I say, the money isn't the only part of everything. Yes, we need to be strategic about it, but what are you going to do? How are you going to reflect on this time? What is the most important to you? What do you value? How do you spend your time doing those things? I think are more important sometimes than the actual strategy behind everything.
We are not introspective enough as a people. We don't think enough. And I believe that everything begins with a thought.
Mm.
If you change your thoughts, you can change your life. I mean, it's going to take work, but if you have the thought that I want to change this and I'm committed to this, you can work it out. But everything that we do begins with a thought. And our thoughts hold so much power. And I think sometimes people are afraid to be introspective and to think, because the mind can be a dangerous place to hang out. We have those roommates and that chatter. Who do you think you are? You're not good enough. What if you fail? How are you going to pay your mortgage? I mean, there is a lot of negative chatter that we have to learn to control and master and counter with positivity going on. And so people are afraid to think,
Mm-hmm. Well,
because
and
you
I
don't know what's going to come around the corner and knock you out, if you got to be prepared to fight back in your own mind.
And I think for women, especially, we get in our own heads and we think of the stigmatizations that have been applied to us throughout society, right? Like, well, you have to have stability. I can't tell you how many times I talk to a man and they're more willing to take a risk, and I talk to a woman, they're like, I need stability and security to be able to provide for the people around me and myself. And we listen to the outside world, think that we can't take a chance.
And we
Um,
internalize it, and so then we play that recording in our mind, and so we're thinking, oh, not that I want to do something entrepreneurial, but I want to get a new job, I want to change. And then the thought is like, well, these people know you. Do you want to, have to develop all new relationships? Everybody loves you. You're really performing well. Why would you start over? Or why would you go to a new environment when you understand how this organization works? You know the key players, you understand the politics. Why in the world would you start over in a new organization?
Yeah. Or even you have a side thing that you're really passionate about. Like the side hustle has become like the new cool thing to do. But I think that I talked about this on an episode in January with my friend Stephanie, who you've met through Share the Mic. She's joined us a couple of
Yes,
times.
I really like her.
She's amazing. So her and I talked a lot about how your passion doesn't have to be everything that you do for full time, but it could be something that you do on the side. And sometimes we get so afraid of even pursuing our passion for a love of something or creativity. I have an individual I've talked about who loves doing, she loves making signs and doing like different crafty type things. And she works full time. And she's like, well, I don't even know, like, do I try to do it as a business? Do I do this? But what if somebody says I can't do it? I'm not the type of person to think of those types of things in an entrepreneurial space. Well, it doesn't mean that you have to leave your job to pursue the things
Right.
that you really love doing. So how do we get out of that mindset and move forward? What are some things that you've either have in your book or that you coach individuals through or speak on that would provide some clarity for individuals that it might be in that space?
Well, first of all, I believe that everything we do in our life begins with the vision that we hold. And so I would get clear on, I would, if I were talking to the person, coaching them, advising them, I would help them get clear on their vision. And that's the process. That is of, you know, that can actually be a year process for some
Mhm.
people. I mean, I do vision board workshops, but it is not easy as coming, I always tell people it is not like about slapping some pictures on a poster board. There is a process for gaining clarity and really understanding your why, because your why is
Mhm.
going to sustain you. So, in this example of the person you were talking about with the signs, I mean, maybe it's just that this is a creative outlet for them and that they don't have to make this a major
Mhm.
entrepreneurial endeavor because this is just something that they do for fun. They like doing it, it provides them with an outlet. And hey, if they can make a little bit of extra money on the side, that's great. And word of mouth marketing is fine, or putting it on Etsy is, is good enough, because sometimes we think that we compare ourselves to others. So she might be like, well, my friend Shannon has launched her own business, so I need to launch my own business.
Mhm.
Here's the thing, we have to stop comparing ourselves to other people. Shannon's journey is Shannon's journey. Jasmine's journey is Jasmine's journey. And when you look at people, when you look, you don't know the sweat equity, you don't know the tears, you don't know the pain, you don't know the self doubt, you don't know anything about what they have endured to
Mhm.
get to where they are today.
Absolutely. I
Or
couldn't
what, and
agree.
not even to where they are today, what they have endured to get to where they are in this moment.
Right. Absolutely. And and going back to what you talked about earlier from a social media standpoint, we don't always share those sides of everything that
No.
happens either. So people don't know. We share a lot of the good and the celebration aspect of things. But nobody saw me last week Tuesday morning up at 3:45 in the morning because I couldn't sleep, sitting on my couch working while watching The Bachelor because I like smutty TV. But I was working at 3:45 in the morning. That's not sexy. That's not like a photo shoot. That's not anything like that. But that's what
No.
sometimes you've got to do. And I had a lot of work to do and I couldn't sleep. And I was like, I might as well just get up and do it.
Right. When
Um,
when these thoughts are racing in our head. Yeah, mine as well, right?
mhm. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about kind of what you're doing now and how you've really stepped into a space in 2020 that is even greater. I mean, you've been building community for a really long time. And now I think people are starting to recognize that this bigger community that you've grown, but you've really been doing it more than just in 2020. So,
Yeah. And it's so funny. I look back and um last year, because I believe in the power of reflection. So I like to reflect. I need to have my rear view mirror moment. So that's another tip everybody wants to talk about their goals for the month and their goals, but let's look at our accomplishments. Take time and look back on like what you didn't accomplish, and not in a you didn't accomplish that, what's wrong, but like, okay, like I still want to do this. I didn't get that done. We need to take time to reflect. But I said I'm a connector at my core, and so when I was laid off from um, my last corporate job, I was invited to lunch with Oprah Winfrey on the very single day. I didn't know until the next day. But people go, and I remember people are like, "Oh, I'm not going to lunch with this group that I had helped co-found," and I'm like, "Well, I think so. I think this is it." And then you get the call that you can't tell anybody about it, and you're going to get the instructions and all of this kind of
Top
stuff.
secret location.
Yeah, not even that. Yeah, but like you get details as needed, not way in advance. Just save the date. Like, let us know if you're coming, and then we'll get you the details. But that whole experience came from this community called the OWN Ambassadors, because I love Oprah. I watched OWN, like you talked about your smut TV. Like, I'm one of these people, especially when I was single and I was by myself all the time. Like, I tweeted with the TV, like, because I didn't have anybody else to talk to and say, "Did you see that? Oh no, what are they thinking? What's happening?" Like, and sometimes I still tweet with the TV because I like to see what other people are saying about TV shows. So through this whole experience, that community was built. And I know that social media can be used for the good, and it can be powerful, and we can build real community, uh, leveraging these devices and these apps, these devices with apps, I should say. But I also know that from 95, 97% of the people, these apps are extremely, one, curated experience, and that I'm following, my family, my friends. It's some inspirational, it's some aspirational, but it's also a pretty segregated experience. And when we looked at what happened last year and this much needed, in quotes, new awakening, because some people were not aware for whatever reasons there may be, and there's no judgment with that comment. People were just living. um it's like, how do we connect with people, and how do I get voices out so people can understand the issue? Because I'm a lot of people's black friend. Jasmine, my black friend, and I know that I have a diverse pool, but my experience is not everybody else's experience, and what I could say you should do, someone else may see something different. But I wanted to connect people so that they could hear the voices of different black and brown women doing impactful things in our state in the spirit of building community. And then, like I said, on the continuum, starting with awareness. And then hopefully that awareness would lead people. And with Share the Mic Minnesota, we're going to help people take action. And then from action, we really get to that place of like advocacy and championing one another.
Yeah, and you've done such a phenomenal job of sustaining the same community, right? Because I think a lot of what happened in 2020, which happens so frequently when something tragic happens, even in our own personal lives, like people show up right away with casseroles or whatever, right? And people show up right away with their signs and marches. But how do you make it a part of your everyday life? How do you make sure that whatever's showing up on your social feed, or within your community, or the books that you read or the TV shows that you are consciously watching, how do you sustain that beyond just the beginning reactionary period of something happening?
Well, we know it has to be a lifestyle change. As a person who struggles with my weight, and that, we have to have these lifestyle changes. So you have to make the decision that you are going to be committed to this. You're going to be committed to actively seeking out diverse voices and perspective. You're going to be committed to taking action in the spirit of equity and social justice. So you have to make a commitment.
Yeah. And it can't just be like in one space, like you're living your whole life that way. Doesn't mean that you have to do it like everybody else. Like I think we all have our forms of advocacy, but you can't just say you want to do it part-time.
Right. I mean, you can start. I mean, you start, maybe people start working out one day a week. And so maybe it's like,
Right.
I'm reading a book a month and I want, um, you know, 4 of those books to be from diverse authors, or 4 of those books to be about social justice issues. So you can start where you are. And that's what I firmly believe in, starting where you are. I think people make the mistake of saying, I have to make this major
Right. And
change.
I think part-time, I mean, like you can't do it for a period of time, maybe not
Right,
like
right, exactly. Yes,
sporadically, right? Like you
yes,
can't just do
sporadically,
it.
right.
Yeah.
But I
But you're,
believe you start where you are and then maybe you build upon that so that you end up doing more.
yeah, because people have always asked me like how have you stepped into this space? And I mean, it's something I was this is the type of community my parents were very conscious of raising me in, and I've made the choice to continue that lifestyle for my family. And what that looks like is what food are where are we ordering from, what food and restaurants are we supporting, and having those conversations consciously with my kids. Who are the families and the kids that we're surrounded by? How are we advocating for those types of changes within our school district, and being active in those spaces? And those are just simple questions that we can ask. It doesn't mean that you necessarily have to like start this grandiose movement like you did with Share the Mic MN, but it can be some of those different
But it
things.
didn't start that way. It started small. I mean, like literally, you talked to Twyla Dang, you talked to Jared Beavis, and they're like, "Oh, Jasmine, call." I mean, it started with where I am in my community, and I've just been persistent and consistent.
Oh, I love that.
And I take daily action every day. I always say, you got to take daily action. So what are you going to do? Where's this list? What are you going to do? Daily action.
Well,
That's my commitment.
I think your mission of seizing the day and Carpe Diem, right? I have to circle back really quickly on that because every time I say it, you talked
It
about
makes you
how
smile.
it does. And it makes me think of my high school experience. So you're talking about your high school experience. I was a competitive cheerleader in high school, and my coach every year picked a different theme. And my senior year was Carpe Diem, and it was the best year of my life. It was the first time I'd ever been on an airplane, the first time I'd ever been to Florida, the first time I'd ever seen a palm tree. Like all of these opportunities happened for me in that space. So it was such a it was literally I wasn't just seizing the day, I was seizing the year. Like senior
You
year
were
of high school
seizing life.
I
Hey,
was
that's what we're
seizing
trying to
life.
do.
Yeah, and I really had kind of like it was the beginning of a journey of stepping into my own and my own ownership. And it doesn't mean that I didn't fall on my face several times after that or continue to, but it just means that I chose this active space to live in. um but I think that theme plays so true when we start to talk about advocacy or, living that type of life. I think if we don't do the inner work on ourselves first, how are we going to show up in those bigger spaces to do those bigger things?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, so to talk about the book again, and that's really what why I wrote the book, because people were always asking me, like, how do I seize the day? And so these are lessons that I've learned along the journey, some of my personal reflections. But really, what I'm most proud about is that I provided reflection questions and spaces so that you could begin to apply these practices to your life. You go to a doctor, and doctors say, oh, they practice medicine. Lawyers practice law. We are practicing life. People like to say, like, it's not life is not the sprint, it's not the race, it's the journey, it's the marathon. But the point is that we are practicing. And there will be trial, there will be error, we will get some things right. But we got to keep on, and we got to keep on keeping on.
yeah,
I think that's gonna be my next mantra in life. Keep on keeping on.
keep on keeping on. I love that. I mean, part of the reason for me, a lot of people ask me, why do I work out so consistently? Like, how do you get up at the crack of dawn and work out? Like, But for me, it was my mental health journey. And for me, seizing the day was getting up and owning it and reminding myself that if I could make it through a really hard workout, I could make it through the baby crying in the middle of the night. Or, like that's how I started to treat it, right? Like it was a very hard transition for me. Going into parenthood, and postpartum anxiety was a really big part of my life. And I chose to look at it in a different space and take action in my life so that I could keep going every single day of my life. And trust me, not every day do I want to get up. This morning, my bed felt very cozy, very cozy.
Tell me about it. I said, gosh, I'm always like, I need to move my body more and more and more. It took the pandemic for me to realize that, hey, I'm not only moving my body for like physical activity, but moving my body is so good for the mind. And I'd
Mm-hmm.
actually been walking a lot, and I haven't walked because I don't have a treadmill in the past 2 weeks because I just can't
It's too cold
bring myself.
outside.
So I'm not that Minnesotan yet to bundle up and walk in these. What is the temperature? I always like when
Well,
people, I
today's
talk
a
to people
heat
out of
wave.
state.
I
Yeah,
think it
it's
might be
8 degrees.
positive
It's eight.
today.
Yep, I think we are at 8 degrees today.
We might be warmer than it is in Texas, actually,
Hmm.
because I have friends that are down in Texas and they're freezing their tushies off. So, like, as we kind of come to closing out our time together today, what would you like to leave the listeners with in terms of how to move forward, keeping on, and seizing the day?
So, if I have learned anything in my life when it comes to seizing the day, when it comes to taking action, when it comes to just being, is that you have to start. Like you have to start. Like sometimes we just hang out in thought land in our mind. So you start, and you start where you are in this moment. We have this great vision, like, yeah, I want to reach millions of people and change the world. But I got to start where I am. So I start by when I'm at the grocery store, I say hello to people. When I check out, I tell the cashiers, thank you so much for being here. It really means a lot. I really appreciate you being a frontline worker. I do that. I tell them,
Mhm.
thank you. It means a lot. I acknowledge what they are doing. And so I'm touching them. And then they'll say, that nice, crazy lady, whatever. So it's like, so thankful that I was at work today. Where else would I be? But that's a part of my mission to positively impact and touch the lives of millions. So I'm starting right where I am in my community. These are the people that you meet when you're walking down the street, people that you meet each day.
Mm-hmm.
That's all,
Yeah.
Mr. Rogers.
Yes.
And you start with what you have. And so, I have a nice smile, I have a pleasant disposition. So I use that. And then I use my words. And then I use my network. And it all comes together. But you start where you are and you start with what you have.
Yes. Oh, beautifully said, friend. Thank you so much. Where can people continue to get this level of knowledge and joy from you? Where can they hang out with you?
So, they can follow me on my website and on social media. It's so funny. You mentioned like being down. I was kind of MIA because I was suffering from CAD. I'm coming out of this CAD.
Yeah.
It's like sad, but
Yeah.
it's COVID effect disorder.
Yeah.
In fact, I probably should do a video today because I'm looking good and say, hey friends, have you missed
Yeah.
me? This is the deal. Um, but they can follow me on social media, Carpe Diem JBS, and my website is Carpe Diem with Jasmine. Would love for them to support what we're doing with Share the Mic Minnesota, sharethemicmn.com. And then they can always ping you and you could point them in the right direction, right? You
Yes,
tag me in a
absolutely.
lot of things. Carpe Diem JBS is a great place to start.
Yeah, absolutely. I would be happy to connect anyone with Jasmine. And I will also say this, if you are somebody who is interested in participating and share the mic, and then it is an awesome experience. I have met so many amazing women through that community and process. So don't
What have you
hesitate.
gotten from your participation? I know you and Latoya have stayed connected. So
We absolutely have stayed connected. I will say, Shantan and I have connected, and she was on the podcast, as well as she asked me to be a speaker for her Girls Are Powerful event.
yes.
And we are connecting next week on some further opportunities to provide some financial education to some of the young women that she works with, and what we can continue to do together moving forward, because our missions are very aligned in what we do from an
Did you
educational
know
perspective.
Fabiana before Through the Mic Minnesota, or was
I
that a
I
connection too?
I did know Fabiana. And this is a shout out if Ebony is listening. Ebony is on my list of individuals to be on the podcast as well. I know she just launched her coaching business. So Ebony
Ebony Wyatt
Wyatt,
or Ebony Bell?
Emily
Yes.
Wyatt.
Yes.
So we'll connect on that piece of things. But yeah, I've just been, it's such a great community, and Beth is so phenomenal.
Yes.
So kind of behind the scenes
No,
doing
I was
everything.
admiring. I was like, is that a Beth bracelet you're wearing?
No, it's not, but I need a Beth bracelet. I'll just add it to the rest of the bracelets that I have. These bracelets, for those of you that aren't watching but are listening, I wear a ton of jewelry and bracelets every day, and I have a bunch of stacked bracelets that have been gifts from different individuals and have just different meanings in my life. So, well, thank you so much, Jasmine. We appreciate you sharing your wisdom with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you again for your commitment. Thank you for these conversations that you are sharing.